Hello folks and welcome to our game on Thursday morning here, bright and early, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed with Michael Verney and Eamonn O'Hara, of course, Sligo icon. How are you this morning, lads? Start off with you, Eamonn. Nice and early. We decided to push it forward just to make sure we could get you on the show, and you're going to be full value.
Yeah, well, firstly, to become me an icon before 8 o'clock in the morning it's a nice thing to hear. But no, all good. Looking forward to the weekend.
Is that ever something that I've ever saying to Eddie Brennan recently, Kilkenny legend? Do you squirm a bit when people? It's nice to hear it, but you enjoy it.
Hate it. I do really. Like you said Eddie Brennan the legend, and he is, but like there's no doubt it's you do squirm a little bit, yeah. But in fairness, it's flattering to hear. It's always nice to hear. You get called other things as well, so you have to take both sides.
True, yeah, true.
Do you know, Eamonn, it's only a couple of years ago that, with the COVID stuff, Sligo didn't even participate in the All-Ireland Championship. And to be honest, like, if it was a bigger county, if you want to put it that way, that wouldn't have happened. So, like, that's where Sligo were in the pecking order. Whereas this weekend, minors are in the round 4 of Connacht on Friday night, under-20s in an All-Ireland semi-final on Saturday, and a senior Connacht final on Sunday. So things have turned around an awful lot in, 2.5, 3 years?
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good period. I suppose obviously COVID was a disaster for Sligo, and obviously Connacht unable to field the team, and bitterly disappointing, and a lot of lads missed out on the opportunity. But things come full circle. The last couple of years, there's been a lot of work done at underage level, and obviously with the minors' success at Connacht level with Paul, and then obviously Desi being in charge of Desi Sloan being in charge of the under-20s and obviously winning last year, and then that continuation to get back-to-back Connacht titles has been exceptional, and hopefully we can go one step further this year, and it's a big test going down to Kerry, but it's one that I think they can achieve. There's a real level of confidence within the group, and obviously then come Sunday there's a big game for Sligo. It's to be genuinely honest, it's going to be a tough day, I think, at the office, but still, it's great to be in them, and it's a great experience for the lads.
Just on the 20s for a second, Eamonn, like, to win one is great, but to win two in a row, and I don't think you're involved this year. You're involved last year, am I right in saying?
Yeah, we're involved last year, yeah.
Yeah, to win one is great, and you could say it's a bit of an outlier. To win two in a row, like, that's such a positive sign of what's coming in the next couple of years, but over the next decade as well.
Well, yeah, I think, the last time we probably had a competitive under-21 team was, probably 7 or 8 years ago, and then it's probably go back another 10 years since that. So, all those fellas, have been sort of blended into the team down through the years. And, in Sligo, you're always going to get 7 or 8 that'll be brought into the senior setup, and maybe even more, and obviously more competitive counties, you may not see as many coming in. So, we're just lucky that right now this group, and Desi was involved in for 2 years. He asked me to come in with them last year, and out of the blue, I'm obviously taking all the credit for last year, because we won. But no, the work was being done. There was huge work done with Paul at the minor level, and for them to win a minor title 3 years ago was really, really a boost to the county, and obviously a lot of those lads came through, and Desi had another cohort ready to go, and the mix was, they just blended in together really, really well, and the guys know each other. They obviously are, most of them come from, well, it's been unfair, we always talk about St. Attractors and Summerhill. There's other schools around the county that are contributing an awful lot as well. So it's just, we're just so lucky. There's a group there of 35 lads that are used to winning. They're used to playing against the big teams and not fearing them and beating them. And it's a totally different attitude of this group.
How big is that, Eamonn, just quickly on the 20s, when you're beating Mayo, you're beating Galway, and you're beating them, regularly, and you're getting used to beating them? Because you would have been on, I forget your underage career. Had you beaten them and sometimes not? No, you never beaten them.
That was go back to 94. Like 94, 95, we actually played Galway. 93, 94, 95. We had a cohort of young fellas that were very competitive as well. Nigel Clancy, Paul Taylor, David Durkin, Desi Sloan, Brian Walsh. We had a good group of players back then, and we ended up going down to Tuam and beating Galway and Tuam, and then obviously 2 years in a row, Mayo went on to win one All Ireland and then compete in another, and we had drawn in both Connacht finals against them, so we were competitive back then. But we were we had played at under 16 and under 18, and we were always well beaten. But this group haven't been beaten. And when you're playing that schools competition in A and B, and you're going up against St. George's, or you're going up down against Jarlath, whoever it might be, Rice College, and you're able to beat these fellas, they just become ordinary guys, and you look at them differently, and the narrative is differently, because down to the years we were all be talking about, it's the Mayo, it's the Galway, it's the Roscommon, we shouldn't feel inferior, and you're getting psychologists in telling you shouldn't fear yourself, you shouldn't doubt yourself. These fellas don't need that. These fellas just believe it because they've done it, and they've walked the walk. And obviously the Mayo Goers probably look at them and put Sligo up on a little bit of a pedestal at this stage. But we're not getting losing the run of ourselves either. Like, it's been 3 good years, minor and two 20s, and hopefully these guys will. I think they will. There's a group, in terms of the characters and getting to know them last year, and obviously few new fellas coming in this year. There's a real sort of desire to represent Sligo, and a hunger to represent Sligo and to be successful at Sligo. So yes, the future looks good, but there's no guarantees.
And Eamonn, when you go on to the coalface of club football and your involvement with Tourlestrane, and even just watching locally, do you also feel like there's no reason for Sligo football to feel inferior based on what you're seeing there?
Yeah, well, I suppose we've been very, very dominant in Sligo for the last number of years, and people find it as a criticism, and they'll say it, well, it's ruining Sligo football, but it's up to other teams to other clubs to sort of come back and compete. And St Mary's have come very, very close, and everyone has given it a go, and there's no doubt about it. We're lucky in Tourlestrane. There's been a very, very successful timeline for us as well, and we're sort of making hay when the sun is shining. But it's not guaranteed. I think if once we lose one, we might not win another county title for a number of years, and because of the numbers that we got, we come from a very, very small club in South Sligo, and the numbers coming through, even though there's huge work being done, are small. They're limited, and that quality may not come through, but it has worked so far for us. We've been very successful with our club, and we're very proud of the lads that are playing and performing year in, year out, and on high consistent basis. So again, long may it continue, but it's going to come to an end some point, and some team is going to come, but that competition will help. I think if we can get more clubs being competitive at senior level in the county, it'll definitely do well for the senior setup in terms of the county.
Yeah, it was about 15 months ago I watched Sligo play Tipperary in the league in Thurles. Tipperary won by 4 points that day. Obviously, Tip have taken a bit of a downturn since the promotion, but what's the trajectory been for Tony McEntee's team? Because it was a 3rd place finish in the league last year, and obviously taking a step on this year. So what have you seen in terms of development?
I suppose it really was, Tony was probably very realistic coming into the role, and I don't think he had massive aspirations to say that we're going to win a Connacht title or anything like that. Compare that to Borough Joyce saying he's going to win an All-Ireland. I think that was the way they were looking for success. Obviously, the quality of player in terms of conditioning and in terms of size, in terms of athleticism, was probably not at the level it could have been. Even though there was work being done, I just think Tony has come in and he's put shape on things. I think the general consensus would have been better if we got promoted earlier. We'd get that early bounce, but it didn't happen for 2 years with them. I think the inclusion of Colin McFadden from Donegal has definitely helped them this year, and I think obviously they're on a good run. I think it's 8 or 9 games in a row, and albeit it's against the lesser teams, your Division 4s. It's progress in terms of obviously getting promotion was vital. It's to get out of Division 4 is key, but it's how you maintain, it's how you develop, it's how you go forward. The goal is obviously to get up. We know we're not a Division 1 team, but I think we can definitely get up there top of Division 3 and definitely compete in Division 2. And that's where you need to be, because going into this game at the weekend, you're coming off a mindset, and it's so different, lads. Playing Division 4, you've got so much time on the ball. You're able to make mistakes, and come Sunday, there's absolutely no opportunity to make a mistake. You're going to be out alive if you dwell on the ball. It was the first thing I learned was, I think we played Dublin in '97. I think it was in Markfish Park in the league, Mickey Moran's era. And it was just the intensity. You thought you had time on the ball and you were getting blocked. Your mindset wasn't really at it. And these fellas have been operating at Division 3, and that's where I would worry for the weekend, that the pace of the game would just get on top of them, and it's the relentlessness. It's not so much, early doors you'd be at it, but it's the repeat sets of kickouts facing that type of thing. That's just a pressure build up, and I think our lads might struggle in that scenario. So yeah, to answer the question, it's great to get out of Division 4. Important that we compete really well in Division 3, but it's on the basis of we'll be entering Division 3. And these next 4 games for Sligo are going to be vital. What do we expect of them? We don't expect to win a Connacht title, but we expect to be very, very competitive. Have the lads got a game plan for that? I don't know. I've seen it against London. I've seen them against New York, and there's still the same mistakes are happening. Both teams have exposed us a little bit up the middle. So I think we need to do something now. Whether you go to defensive game plan, but that's only been implemented over the last maybe 2 weeks, so I don't think that'll be effective. So if you go toe with Galway, we'll be out alive, and I think it'll be just interesting to see how we manage over this week. And you just hope that there's not too much collateral damage over the next coming weeks.
Yeah, Michael, there's a huge disparity in terms of the semi-finals. Like Eamonn's already explained them there. And a victory over London and New York, that it doesn't really set you up for a clash with a Division 1 side like this, does it?
No, it's poles apart, and I'm just wondering, Eamon, how do you make up for that deficit in class? You can't really, rip up the script of what you've been doing all year and say we're going to put, park 13 men behind the ball and play differently just for this game. So even throughout your own career, you were maybe coming from a lower base than some of the teams that you ended up beating in championship at different stages. How do you make up for that deficit maybe in class, or how do you make up for playing at a certain level and then trying to jump up to this level?
Well, I think it was the big thing was, I think, when Kevin Walsh's era, I suppose we'd obviously won in 07 and then obviously had a downtime, really bad year, going on with big heads in 08, and then obviously Kevin came in 09 and then continued for his period of time, and we obviously went from 4 to 3 to 2, and we were competitive. We had a good group of players there. We should have won a Connacht title in 10 and possibly 12, and that was the year of James Horan when he sort of went on then to compete in the All-Ireland series, and we were very, very close to teams, and we were very, very competitive in that era. So we probably knew what was required. We just sort of had a mindset, and we played an awful lot of outside top end teams coming up to this. Obviously, with the compressed season, I'm sure Tony wouldn't have a whole lot of time in getting challenge games with a Division 1 or Division 2 team, and you're just trying to sort of prep. And no matter how much you do in terms of your mind, you only know if you're ready when that first ball comes and your handling is all right and the intensity of the tackle. And then if you dwell that 1 second, you realize I'm in a game here. And if you're not prepared for it mentally, if you're not prepared for it physically, it's a long, long day in Castlebar. There's no doubt about that. Those times, I can remember in 07 after us winning Connacht, I was up against young Tom Parsons at 08, and we were out alive all over the pitch. And we just weren't mentally prepared for it. And even though we thought we were on the level, we weren't there. This group knows what's required, I think. But have they got the ability? And it's when you're looking at the likes of, Shea Walsh, Comer, Tierney, Cook, Burke, these fellas can get a goal in the blink of an eye, and you could be in the game and then all of a sudden you're 4 points down and you're facing your next kick out. It's amazing. All goalkeepers, I talked to Fizzy Green and Pat Kilcoyne of the past, and they would have often said, as soon as a goal like that goes in and you're running out with the ball and you're looking for somebody to front up, everyone has a back to them. No one there to take that responsibility, yeah. And that will happen. That's just the nature. You just sort of, no one wants to make the mistake. No one wants to be the next man to make this mistake, and I won't go and support. So,
is there anything worse than when you can see it in a match yourself when you're on the ball and you literally can see some of your teammates making it look like they're looking for the ball, but actually running away from the ball?
It's half-hearted. Like it's pressure. It's the pressure of it, and there's nothing better when you're on top and you're able to sort of really squeeze a team. But there's nothing worse when you're the one that's being squeezed. And you're just looking for a little bit of inspiration for somebody, and then you do see fellas trying, but they try too hard, and then all of a sudden they get turned over, and you can see the frustrations coming out. But I just think it's Sligo, obviously, going into the game, I just think it's about controlling it as best you can, bring it down to a bit of a dogfight. It's not about entertainment. It's about making it really, really ugly, slow the game down. But it's about getting scores on the board. And I think, obviously we've got huge quality in Niall Murphy, Paddy O'Connor, Sean Carabine, 3 really, really good footballers. Throw Pat Spillane into that. And obviously the hard-working Finian Cawley, Keelan Cawley, both working really, really hard on the line. It's just scores could be hard got the next day. And, obviously, and I think it was 16 we were in a Connacht final, and it was against Mayo, and a formidable Mayo when they were in the peak, and probably could have won an All-Ireland around that time, ate us alive. And you just hope that doesn't happen on Sunday.
Like, how good are the likes of those players that you've mentioned? Like Niall Murphy, like he fills out the jersey like a Division 1 player. He kicks the ball like a Division 1 player. Like him, Carabine and O'Connor. Like, how good are these lads?
It's a good question, I suppose. What have they been up against would be, you're only as good as what you're up against. When you're in a team of, you're trying to carry a team, you can almost become a little bit individual, and you try really, really hard. Niall, for what I know of him, and he was only coming in as a young fella, he's an exceptional talent, and it probably needs to be selfish, probably doesn't trust the lads around him as much, because he feels that he can be the one that can do it, and he does deliver. But if you don't have a foil on your left or your right, you all of a sudden can be double teamed, and all of a sudden it's hard to shine, it's hard to show, and often that has happened. Niall, Paddy O'Connor has shown flashes of unbelievable brilliance. He's a really, really good ball winner. He, on Sunday, if the quality of ball gets into him, he could cause trouble. It'll be interesting to see, who Sean Kelly will pick up, the matchups. But Galway have a questionable full back line. If the truth be told, it's untested. They've got questions about their goalkeeper, so it's something we might be able to expose. And Paddy there at 6'2", he might cause a little bit of trouble. Carabine is just he's like a Rolls Royce in terms of, he's not naturally athletic looking, but he's an unbelievable ability to tackle, get turnovers. For a centre forward, that his work rate and his willingness to work for the team is exceptional, and his skill set is just really, really good. He got a great score. I think one of the game plans that Sligo had against New York was obviously go along with a kick out, and he did that on a number of occasions, and the nines was outstanding. I think we scored about 1-3. Nice tactic to have on the day. I don't think Galway will fall into that trap, but it just showed Sean Carabine just was able to roll his man and just dink it up and kicked a lovely point. So it was just, he has the skill set, but this is the day to show you a good footballer. Are you up there? Are you a Division 1 footballer? I think that's the big question. That's the big test for these lads, is that are they able to perform on the big day? I think they're capable of doing it, but you need an unbelievable performance for our defensive or midfield, and I think that to me is where we'll struggle. I think.
Is that the ringtone from that TV show 24 with Kiefer Sutherland?
It's the A-team.
Like when you think of matches where you played against Galway over the years, are there moments or opponents that you think of?
Well, I had the misfortune. Obviously, I started out in 95, 96 when Galway were good. I was actually marking Ray Silk, and I can remember to this day, it was one of the weirdest things. We actually drew with them, and actually Declan McGoldrick was our free taker. So he missed a penalty. We should have beaten them. Missed a penalty. We went to a replay up in Tuam. Now they comprehensively better us on the day. But Ray Silk was holding my baby finger. You know what I mean? It's to this day I remember it, but he got into my head. When he was holding my finger, I was thinking about it rather than running away. So it's small little things you learn. And then obviously I was up against Kevin Walsh and Sean O'Donnell, Twin Towers. They were just two giants, and myself and Paul Durkin were sort of trying to keep the ball as low as possible. But they were just a formidable outfit. But we were competitive. Galway never dominated us that much. Obviously, Mayo was the team that always probably was the one that would give you the clipping. Well, I take that back. Galway did clip us in 2000, where if we'd beaten Mayo I can remember watching James Horn making reference to the game where he got sent off. He was an incident with me where I kind of made the most of a little bit of a bump he gave me. He got sent off. We bet Mayo, huge euphoria in Markovich Park, and then Galway arrived into town 2 weeks later, and literally it was 40-0 at half time. Like, it was one of the worst days of Sligo football. There's a picture of myself, Desi Sloan and Paul Taylor, and just in the background then is the scoreboard where the three of us just looked like three lost sheep, like in the middle of nowhere. We just was one of those awful days. And then obviously we got competitive, and we obviously bet Galway then in 07, and at that stage then it was tit for tat. We were really, really competitive with them. So some great games against Galway, and funny, we had Kevin as the manager, and he was excellent. He would give great insight, and he was very honest and talk about certain fellas blowing black smoke, but everything he said we believed and bought into it, and we felt that we were as good as anyone in Connacht that time.
Just talk to me about this baby finger again. I'm fascinated by this. How did this come about exactly? Just holding your baby finger?
It was basically me. I used to stand in an awful bad habit of standing with my two hands on my hips, and it was just basically he just got a hold of the baby finger, and I kind of looked back at him and I was saying, and then you get involved, and then you started giving a little bit of a dig, and I was, you're a young fella coming in, you should have a bit more cop on, but he was just playing it cute. It was just that little, the act of distraction, and while that was going on, I wasn't sort of running, I wasn't involved in the play, and he was doing his job. He was taking me out of the game, but it always resonated with me, and I often tried it with a couple of lads.
I was going to ask you whether you tried with anyone after. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. You go hold a hand or just touch somebody, and they'd be kind of wondering what he at. But yeah, it's the tricks of the trade and the dark arts, or whatever you want to call it. But
it's a dark arts though, because he's an experienced player and he's thinking, how can I take this young fella, like who's probably fitter, faster, stronger than me, but if your head is gone at all, forget about it. It's
first, as soon I knew it, it was afterwards, and I was funny enough, Lord Ross, my father, was telling him about it, and he said, you learned your lesson. I said, I did, yeah. He says it's art of distraction, and it was. It's something that you sort of realize that, yeah, he won that one on me. But that was the way you do whatever it takes. There's small little things, there's subtle little things that you can just deflect, and that's exactly what it was. I remember, and unfortunately I never learned my lesson. I remember in '94 it was Kevin Staunton with Mayo, and I would have known a lot of the Knockmore lads, and Kevin was one of the rising stars with Knockmore, and obviously they were playing in All Ireland at that time, All Ireland club, and he asked me how the family were, and it started during the championship 10 minutes into the game, and literally we were being kicked off the field, and we having a conversation with them, just silly little things, but naivety at its very, very best. But it's just they were cuteness, and how the way they played it at the time.
It's gas. We played a county final in Offaly against Kinnity in 08, and he's a counsellor since, John Glendenning. He was a touch eccentric, but he came in sub with 10 minutes to go, and he just came in and was like, well, lads, what's the crack in here? And I was just like, what is this, lad? Like, he totally inside my head, like straight away, like he just out of the game, like it's mad
stuff. The best way I always found was you just make up a lie about something. You just make up and you'd have the person actually, you could see them actually. You suddenly look over at them, and you can see them thinking about what did O'Hara actually say? What did he mean by that? And the game is going on, and you have a gentle reminder again of it. It's just small games, but it works.
You hear some nasty ones too. Like I heard of one player, apparently he wrote the phone number of a rival player's girlfriend on his arm or whatever to try and get into his head. So nothing seems to be off bounds, really.
It's you can step to all type of lows. Listen, I have often dealt with certain fellas, like, I have a bit of a wicked tongue in me at times, and I have a way of biting back, and it's right to the bone. But as I just said, it's not a tactic I'd ever really use. It's you just get on with football, but somebody throws something at you, you can nip it in the bud. But you can see young fellas being, there's physically handling fellas, and obviously they brought in the black car for that type of stuff, and you still see it happening, and some fellas getting away with it. But listen, it's part and parcel of the game. It's no one is getting hurt, and that's the way it is.
What do we make of the Eamonn, the Sam McGuire and Tailteann Cup group draws being made before we know all the teams that are true to it. Like, so I'll bring it up here. So if you want to reference any of the particular groups here in the Sam McGuire initially, but just the idea that we don't know who's going to be in either competition yet. We've made the draw.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I suppose everyone will honour their duty of performing really, really well. And there's no doubt you'll expect Dublin, Kerry, Galway, and well, it'll be both Armagh and Derry will be the one that you'll kind of say which way it'll be. So, you know, funny, somebody was making the reference, Jesus, Galway might let Sligo win this one because it could be in an easier draw. There's more chance now of Our Lord arriving in Castlebar on Sunday than that actually happened. But it's wouldn't it be lovely if Galway did give us a Connacht title? You know what I mean? We greatly accept it, but it's just one of those ones. It is what it is. The draw had to be made, obviously, in terms of trying to get logistics and hotels if necessary to be booked for teams. So it's a logistic. I believe it's a logistic reason they did it. But they're interesting draws. You know, you have that mini Ulster one, and obviously we could have an attractive one. Obviously, Roscommon and Kildare. Well, going by what you'd expect the results to be, Roscommon and Kildare and Dublin, and I believe Dublin could be the neutral venue one. So it'll be nice. Obviously, one of my best friends, Jerry McGowan, is involved there with Davy Byrne in Roscommon. So he'll be up against his home club or his home county. So yeah, there's lots of connection. Obviously, David Byrne will be with going up against his home county in Kildare. So yeah, there's interesting games there, but there's also potential heavy defeats there as well for Sligo. And this goes back to our point, and having a really, really good year this year and getting momentum, getting Division 4 will, games. Obviously, you can say Kildare is one that you could target and try and win. But if they play like they did against Dublin, you'd kind of say they'd be too good.
The line's gone a little funny there, is it?
Small bit, yeah. Small bit.
Sorry, am I losing you there?
You're okay. I might just, because we'll let you go in a second because you've been really good with your time. But the last question I'd just like to ask is, when other counties are going well, like in Connacht, be it a Galway or a Mayo or a Roscommon, how does that taste with you? Is there any county in Connacht that you have a liking for more than others, or is there maybe hatred's too strong a word, but is there a dislike for them all?
See me, lads, or hear me. I as a player, I hate it all and hated their success. But as a fella now that has gone out of county football since 13 and been involved in punditry since that, I have huge admiration for the teams there, how they build and how they work. You probably get more insight. You're probably more interested in how they develop and what they do. And obviously Mayo's longevity over the last number of years, obviously really, really disappointed that they didn't win an All-Ireland, because, you just have to admire their success. I think you sort of lose that chip off your shoulder. I think it sort of dissolves away unknown to yourself, and then you sort of have an admiration for teams. And obviously, with Porrick being a friend of mine, Porrick Joyce, and him, playing against him down to the years, to step up and say that he, success is winning an All-Ireland. I love that. I absolutely adore that, and a manager and a person to kind of be that bold and make that statement. But as a Sligo person, you want to be up there with them. You want to be able to compete with them, at least be competitive, at least let them come like our under-20s are viewed and say, this is going to be a tough day. It's Sligo. We should beat them. But Jesus, if we're not on it, we're in bother. And that's the way I always wanted it to be. You have to be realistic that we won't beat them every day, but there is days will come that we can really, really turn them over and give them a clipping. And that's what I'd like. That's what I'd ultimately like in Connacht.
Eamonn, look, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Great insight.
All the best. Good meeting you. Take care.
Good man.